So does Jim Comey see himself as a witness? Only time will tell, but he is certainly qualified to answer the questions about his dealings with the executive branch. Joining me now is a reporter who's been on this story for some time, NBC national security reporter Ken Dilanian. Thank you, and I begin with the question, maybe the hard question if you can't fully answer it, but is it possible that Jim Comey sees himself here as a witness?
I think it's pretty clear that he does, Ari, which probably explains why he wrote all those memos. Recall that sources close to Comey have told NBC News that he memorialized nearly every interaction he had with President Trump, both phone calls and meetings. And they have described, his growing sense of discomfort as Trump made a series of inappropriate requests. And some of these stories have leaked. We first heard about the dinner where Trump asked Comey to pledge his loyalty. This is according to Comey's account, of course, people close to Comey. And Comey replied that he could not pledge loyalty, but he could only pledge honesty. And then we learned about this Oval Office meeting a few weeks later, where Trump allegedly asked Comey to end the Flynn investigation. Flynn had resigned at that point, and it seemed to be a message of, can't you move along with this thing? Comey viewed that as inappropriate. So, and what was interesting about how this testimony came to pass is, as you said, is that Robert Mueller, the special counsel, has cleared Comey to talk about some of this stuff. But what we don't know is whether there's anything that's off limits. Is there anything that Comey knows that Mueller has said, I'd rather you not talk about that, Ari?
Well, and to that point, is there anything that Jim Comey knows that is really more of an issue for Congress than the DOJ, when under a bipartisan precedent, the DOJ doesn't tend to focus on criminal activity by a president? So to some degree, is that a weird kind of very important loophole where Jim Comey is potentially more likely to talk about Trump stuff than lower-level targets, potential targets of any inquiry?
That's right. It's a really interesting question whether Robert Mueller is investigating Donald Trump for obstruction of justice. We don't know the answer to that. If he is, it would seem like Jim Comey is an important fact witness. And there may be some things that Mueller would rather he not say, because, as a prosecutor, you don't want the other witnesses and the potential defendants to know what the prosecuting witness's story is, right? So that certainly is a factor, Ari.
I want to get really lawyerly with you, so I apologize to you and the viewers. But the other thing I want to get into is what matters a lot is the state of mind. And anything relating to tampering or obstruction that involves the president is going to go to his state of mind. And as you know, ignorance can be a defense. Confusion can be a defense. In other words, a lot of things that might be bad, you might rather the president wasn't completely confused about how the FBI works, can be a defense that goes against what you would really need, as you know, in obstruction, which is something corrupt, an evil state of mind, and an attempt to actually consciously intercede. Given your knowledge of Jim Comey and these issues, do you expect him to give any ground? Because he is going to be asked by people not only what happened, what was the food on the table at the dinner, how long was the dinner, not just what happened. He's going to be asked, what do you think the president was trying to do? What was his mental goal?
Right, and I think that's a really interesting question. And here's another question that Comey will be asked that goes to that issue. He will be asked, why, sir, didn't you resign immediately? If you thought this was inappropriate, if you thought this was obstruction of justice, why didn't you resign and then report it to the Attorney General? And what I'm being told by sources close to Comey is the answer is he thought it was inappropriate, some of the things President Trump was asking of him and saying to him. He was disturbed by it, but he also thought it was manageable. He believed that he could continue as an independent FBI director and shield the FBI from some of these inappropriate requests, but he also, of course, memorialized it in these written records. In case this day would come to pass, and now it has.
You use that word, manageable. Anyone who followed the 2016 election will remember Jim Comey seemed to think other issues were manageable if he could just talk about them and he could just articulate them. And I think history proved it wasn't as manageable as his initial thought.
That's right. It's a really interesting question. It speaks to what some people see as hubris in Jim Comey, but it also speaks to his record as an honorable public servant who thought he could do the right thing and, was trying to protect the FBI from what he thought was improper interference, at least according to his allies.
Very interesting, and appreciate your reporting and insights as always. NBC national security reporter Ken Dilanian.
Great to be with you, Ari. Thanks.